I want everyone in this room to envision themselves as part of some large group effort. We all know what this is like. Maybe you're a member of an orchestra. It's literally rattling the doors. Maybe you're a member of an orchestra and you're rehearsing for a big concert. Maybe you're an athlete making final preparations for a tournament or in the middle of a long season. Or maybe you're working with somebody, or working with a large number of other people on a project. Whatever the situation, I now want you to envision that you're making little progress. Every moment it feels like you're nearing a breakthrough. You're nearing a time of success. You're nearing something that feels good. There's something that gets in the way. You're just banging your head against the wall, trying to figure out the right formula of effort and intuition and luck that will crack the code. In this situation, it's inevitable that you might hear, or in fact, you might start some discontented murmuring. The conductor is in over his head. The symphony is too challenging. The coach's tactics aren't working anymore. They should get rid of her. They never take my ideas. I should be in charge. Does this sound familiar to any of you? In many ways, this is the situation in which Moses finds himself in this week's Torah portion. The Israelites have, as we know now, seen Hashem's power and might. Look, they were rescued from Egypt. The Red Sea parted. They've received the Ten Commandments. But there's still an element now of what have you done for me lately? This seemingly endless wandering. Now, we know it's 40 years. They don't know it's going to be 40 years. The endless wandering is grating on some of these people who might be more inclined to discontent. And this week's Parashat jumps right in with very little preamble. Korach betook himself to rise up against Moses together with 250 Israelites, chieftains of the community, chosen in the assembly, men of repute. So Korach and a couple of others, followed by other highly esteemed men, say, hey, Moses, what's going on? We should be in charge. Why are you apart from the group? They're griping about the fact that, especially since it doesn't really seem like they're getting closer to this land of milk and honey, that Moses had made himself more powerful. Israelites. As the Parashat progresses, Moses instructs Korach and his followers, and we might, in fact, call them co-conspirators. I don't know. That's, I guess, a matter of personal opinion about how they're going to determine whom Hashem has favored. I don't think this is going to come as a massive shock to any of you that Hashem, in fact, does say, yes, I chose Moses. I chose him. I set Aaron apart. But not only that, as we've read a lot of times, Hashem then says, well, there's got to be some vengeance here. And I actually particularly like this version of vengeance. The ground opens up and swallows Korach, Datan, and Abiram, and their families, and very specifically says they takes them to Sheol. This is also then followed by a plague that kills specifically 14,700 people. I don't know how it came up with that number, but it did. But this is an echo of a story we've heard several times now. Moses' leadership is doubted, or Hashem is doubted. Hashem confirms his power. People get punished. But there is something that I really do want to pull out of this, a lesson that we can really take. Not just don't go after God. Don't go after Moses. That should be pretty obvious. And not something we really have to deal with at this moment, I guess. But Hashem says to Moses to gather rods from each of the leaders of the 12 tribes and place them in the tabernacle. The next morning, Aaron's rod, the rod of the Levites, whom we already know are the most loyal of groups because they're the ones who carried out some of the extrajudicial murders earlier in the Torah. Aaron's rod has, quote, brought forth sprouts, produced blossoms, and borne almonds. Levites are affirmed as the tribe responsible for maintaining the tent of meeting. So what do we learn from this? We have this idea that you should not want power for power's own sake. You know, we don't need to any longer worry that the ground is going to open up and take us whether we question authority or not. But I do want us to think about the idea that leadership is not necessarily a bad thing. An organization that has no leaders, you might think is full of equality, but it's not necessarily functional. Orchestras need conductors. Pat Mahomes needs Andy Reid calling the plays. no matter how brilliant he is. What we should avoid, and I think the lesson to take away from this week's Parashat, is that power for its own sake is the problem. If Pat Mahomes got Andy Reid fired because he wanted to call his own plays, it probably would not be all that successful. If the first chair violin, which I guess is concertmaster, if the concertmaster gets the conductor fired and then takes over, I can't guarantee it's going to work. Leadership for the sake of the betterment of the organization is good. Trying to set you apart for the good of the group should be glorified. Setting yourself apart for your own glorification should be vilified. Shabbat Shalom, and welcome to the 25-26 school year.